The trailer for the Moana live-action remake dropped with full force, adapting several scenes from the animated film into the real world. But did you know the new movie might end up being even more different from the animation than we ever imagined? Demigod. Even though it's clear that the live-action will stay faithful in many ways, there are also good chances it will give itself the freedom to make some changes to the story. Whether those changes will be accepted by the audience, we'll only know when the movie comes out, but it's easy to imagine certain adjustments that could improve the story of the Princess of MOANA a lot, especially if some of those changes are connected to MOANA 2, released in November 2024. MOANA 2 came out several years after the 2016 film and expanded the universe a lot, introducing new characters and concepts that probably weren't even considered by the creators when the first movie was being developed. Back in 2016, nobody really expected Moana to become a demigod, which is exactly what happens at the end of the second animated film. But since the remake is being released after Moana 2, the movie may already start hinting that the Voyager will eventually become a demigoddess, especially because Disney definitely intends to make a live-action version of the second animated film too if the remake becomes the hit they expect it to be. Maybe we'll get a glimpse of that future, or even a scene showing Moana almost awakening her divine tattoos, proving she always had the potential to become a deity. You can take the Lilo and Stitch live action as an example. It introduced Jumba's other experiments, the ones that only appear in the sequels of the cartoon, as little Easter eggs. Since the movie did well, it's getting a sequel, and there's a high chance those characters who appeared just as references will become an important part of the next story. Pretty interesting, right? And this is only one of the 10 amazing theories you didn't know about the Moana live action. Stay tuned because another Cinewave full of new stuff is starting now. Age rating. Moana, like all Disney animated films, is very kid-friendly, even though it touches on some heavy themes. But the trend is that the live-action remake will be darker, to the point where its age rating might end up higher than the original movies. One thing that makes us believe this is that when the trailer shows the release date, right below it you can see the phrase, "This film is not yet rated." This could mean nothing, since the movie only comes out in July 2026, but we're not talking about any random blockbuster. We're talking about the remake of a kid's animated movie. If it were going to be as similar to the original as people expect, it probably would have already received an age rating, the same as the 2016 film. The fact that it didn't suggests the movie might end up being darker than usual. And that makes sense because even if it only adapts the original scenes, some things naturally look scarier in live action. Like the scene of Moana drowning. It's already nerve-wracking in the animated version, but imagine watching a real actress go through something like that. Now, if we assume the movie will include brand new dark scenes, the whole thing could get even heavier. The remake will definitely still be watchable for kids, but even so, it's possible that some of them may walk out of the theater a little traumatized. Maui as a villain. Disney usually makes two kinds of remakes, the ones that faithfully adapt the animated film and the ones that change the story, sometimes flipping it completely upside down to surprise the audience. Sometimes we walk into the theater expecting the first type, and it suddenly becomes the second one after a plot twist. And this might be exactly the case with the Moana live action, if they reveal that this version's Maui is actually a villain. This idea may sound absurd at first, but here's the thing. Disney already did something like this recently in the Lilo and Stitch remake. In the original, Jumba, Stitch's creator, ends up joining the good guys in the end, but in the new version, he takes on the role of the main villain, and he doesn't get redeemed at all. In Moana's case, Maui is the one responsible for the problem the main character needs to solve, since he was the one who stole the heart of Te Fiti. He even steals Moana's boat to escape the island where he'd been trapped, fully intending to leave her behind. They only join forces afterward, but in the remake, this could unfold differently, with Maui only pretending to become her friend just so he can trick her. This would make the live action completely different from the 2016 movie, and all of us would absolutely be shocked watching that twist happen. Would you like this change, or would you be disappointed? Nalo. Nalo surprised all of us with his power and cruelty in Moana 2, and he's another element from the sequel that may show up earlier in the remake. After all, the second animated film built him up as the franchise's major threat, so it would make perfect sense for that danger to already exist in the first movie, even if it's only in a post-credits scene, mainly because Moana's entire mission to save Te Fiti was only the first step to ending Nalo's curse and reconnecting all of humanity. Giving him a meaningful appearance in the remake would set the stage for the live-action sequel, while while also reminding people of the events of Moana 2 and getting them hyped for the third animated film. Come on, we would all get chills if the live action included a reference to Nalo, right? Especially if Moana 3 were officially announced right after the remake's release. If you want to see him in the movie too, comment below with #Nalo. Without Te Fiti. However, there's also a real chance that some expectations might end up being broken in the new movie. Every fan of the Voyager story is definitely excited to see Te Fiti in live action, with CGI that's far more realistic than the animation from the original film. That is, unless they decide to give the character a human form, similar to what they did with Jumba and Piccoli in the Lilo and Stitch remake. But what if, instead of either of these options, Te Fiti simply doesn't show up at all? She doesn't appear in the trailer, and it might be because Disney wants to keep her design a secret for a while, saving the reveal for a later trailer, or who knows, for the movie itself. Still, with the goddess not appearing like this, it's possible she simply won't show up in her true form in the film. If that's the case, it would be pretty disappointing, because the scene where Te Fiti appears is one of the most beautiful moments in Moana, Maui's origin. Now, one of the saddest scenes is the one where Maui tells his backstory, revealing that he was thrown into the ocean as a baby and was brought back to life by the gods, becoming a demigod. It's a touching moment, but his story was really short. Just imagine if this backstory were explored more deeply in the remake. This origin could be shown through a longer flashback, instead of just a quick recap narrated by Maui. That way, we could meet his parents and also his people, which would make the moment he gets abandoned feel even sadder. It would be an amazing way to bring changes to the remake without actually altering the original story, just adding more content to the new film. One of the main attractions of this live action is the fact that Maui will be played by Dwayne Johnson, who already voiced the demigod in the animated versions, but now will also portray him physically. So giving Maui extra focus feels very natural. With PUA, we all love Pua, Moana's little pig. But let's be honest, none of us should get our hopes up about him having any real importance in this movie, especially since he doesn't show up in the trailer. Yep, there's a real chance Pua won't show up at all. He already doesn't have much importance in the first animated movie and only started traveling with the Princess of Motunui in Moana 2. With that in mind, choosing to remove him completely from the remake of the first film to make room for new things isn't that absurd, since the piglet could be introduced in the Moana 2 live action, where he actually matters. Of course, it's also possible that Pua simply didn't appear in the trailer because he has little importance in the adaptation, just like in the original material, still showing up, but in only a few scenes, since Moana doesn't take him on her journey to return the heart of Te Fiti. Matangi flashback. We've talked about how important Nalo is to the franchise, but Matangi was also a huge highlight in Moana 2, enough that she also has a real chance of appearing in this remake. And if she does, it will most likely be connected to that Maui origin flashback we theorized about. Something few people remember is that the demigod actually has a past with Matangi that wasn't explored in Moana 2, but it really happened. Many fans believe they might have even had a romance or something close to that, but we didn't get any scenes showing this past to confirm the truth. And that's exactly where the remake could shine, giving us a flashback that finally shows how Maui and Matangi met. Ever thought about always having new animation content on your feed? Just subscribe and hit the bell. Kakamoras. Another element from Moana 2 that could be brought into the remake of the first film is the partnership between Moana and the Kakamoras. In the 2016 movie, those little coconut-like creatures are threats that the Voyager encounters during her journey, but she ends up forming an alliance with the Kakamoras in the sequel after discovering that they also want to put an end to Nalo's curse. It would be interesting if this partnership started earlier this time, maybe right after the first battle against the Kakamoras. Imagine if, in this version, they helped Moana defeat Tamatoa to retrieve Maui's hook. It would be really fun to see the crab interacting with those creatures, and especially getting beaten up by them. Part 2. We've talked about several things that could be added to the movie, but then a question comes up. If the remake really includes so much new content, how will the entire story of the original film fit into it? And the answer may very well be that the remake will be split into two parts, each one adapting half of the original movie story while also adding new elements. The first part would probably feature Tamatoa as the main villain, and the climax would be the battle between Maui, Moana, and the giant crab, ending with the demigod finally getting his magical hook back. The journey to recover the artifact would be a lot more complicated in this version, with Tamatoa being an even greater threat. The second part would be the rest of the journey to return the heart of Te Fiti, in which Moana and her friend, played by Dwayne Dwayne Johnson, face Taka, who is the corrupted version of Tafiti, in case you don't remember. But this second part would have the freedom to add many new things, such as the previously mentioned presence of Nalo and Matangi. Take the chance and watch the 2 videos we left on the screen. I'm sure you'll have fun. See you soon.